Welcome to Talking Science, where we dive into the latest news from space and science. Professor Andrew Hopkins from Macquarie University has beamed in to discuss the first radio observations from the galactic plane. Professor, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, Matt.
Now, a quick reminder before we dive in, you can get early access and behind-the-scenes goss to all Trekzone podcasts by becoming a member today. Click the join button on any Trekzone video or go to the Trekzone/support. Professor Hopkins, we've been featuring the ASCAP site in Murchison a bit here on Talking Science lately. The main attraction isn't even built yet, but its predecessor is making some stunning discoveries. Just before we dive onto the galactic plane, how exciting is it that the SKA is one step closer to construction now?
Oh, it's amazing. This is going to be one of the groundbreaking facilities to do astronomy with. Astronomers have been looking forward to this for the last 30 years. It's really, really exciting. There's going to be so much happening with it.
Well, the research began when less than half of the ASCAP antennas were operational, but still they managed to capture about 40 square degrees of the sky.
That's exactly right. So the advantage with ASCAP is that it has a very, very large field of view. That's one of the things that with the EMU survey, which I lead, means that we're going to be able to map the entire southern hemisphere in a reasonable amount of time. Not terribly quickly, but certainly it's not something you could have done in the past. And this early science that we did as the telescope was being commissioned with only 16 antennas covered one of those large patches, one of those large fields of view that was accessible through this facility and was one of the first measurements using this telescope of the galactic plane. Obviously, our galaxy has been very well studied over the years. It's been well studied at radio wavelengths as well as optical and infrared wavelengths and many more. But this particular set of observations really helped to demonstrate the power of ASCAP, not only in terms of its field of view, but also its sensitivity to extended radio emission. One of the things about the galactic plane is that it features lots of very complex structures. So supernova remnants have clouds of expanding gas around them, which emit at radio wavelengths, and we see those as rings in radio emission. The hydrogen gas clouds that form the birthplaces of new stars are also bright at radio wavelengths and are also kind of extended and fuzzy on the sky. So you need a facility that has the capacity to be able to detect that extended emission as well as the very faint emission coming from the dim versions of those kinds of objects.
Now, I have to ask about the Scorpio Field that was the centre of the study. That's also known as the stellar continuum, originating from radiophysics in our galaxy. I know astronomers and scientists love a good acronym. Was this the case here to get it to spell out the name of the constellation you were looking at?
Absolutely. And it's not the first time that we've reverse engineered acronyms to produce engaging names for the projects. EMU itself stands for the Evolutionary Map of the Universe and is actually named for the emu in the sky, which is a very famous Aboriginal constellation made up of the dark clouds in the Milky Way rather than the stars themselves. So it's a nice connection to our First Nations peoples and Indigenous Australians, as well as being a major project in its own right.
Absolutely. Well, incredibly, the team managed to measure more than 3,600 compact radio sources just in the Scorpio Field, many for the first time. It seems that we can now look into previously thought quiet zones and find a lot of activity.
That's absolutely right. And with the full EMU survey, we're going to be doing this over the entire galaxy. So the opportunity to revolutionise our understanding of the formation history of our own Milky Way is phenomenal. We're really excited about that.
Well, take us to the galactic plane now. It's our neighbourhood, essentially, the place where our solar system lives. What makes it tricky to study?
Well, we're living inside it. So when we look at other galaxies, you'll probably have viewers who imagine beautiful spiral galaxies, beautiful elliptical galaxies, the kinds of things that you see in Hubble Space Telescope pictures, for example. We live in one of those beautiful spiral galaxies, but we're on the inside. So instead of seeing all of that amazing structure, what we see instead is a band of emission that stretches across our sky. Anyone who's been looking at the night sky away from bright city lights will have seen the band of the Milky Way. And it doesn't look like a spiral galaxy from the inside. And so this is one of the challenges in trying to understand the structure of our Milky Way and the way that it has changed and evolved over its history. Ironically, measuring distances to objects within the Milky Way can often be more challenging than measuring distances to galaxies much, much further away from us because of the techniques that we use just don't apply when you're looking at the things within our galaxy, many of which are actually, especially for more nearby stars, for example, we can measure their movement. And so it adds a layer of complexity for sure.
Well, if I understand the research, we're so used to looking outside our galaxy. As you're talking about there, we have to rethink about how to look closer at us. I guess it's almost like taking distance glasses off and putting the reading ones on.
That's a good analogy, yes. One of the exciting things with the Scorpio work is that it's actually been incredibly valuable in helping us to understand the performance of the ASCAP telescope itself. And this was one of the motivations for doing it in the first place. The team that led the Scorpio program, Grazia Umana and Simone Righi in Italy, they had several years earlier prepared a program using a different telescope, the Australia Telescope Compact Array in Narrabri in northwest New South Wales, to map the same patch of sky at a slightly different radio frequency. But they used those observations as a way of anticipating what ASCAP would be likely to see and also validating the results that we've been seeing with the ASCAP data. And this has been incredibly valuable for us in understanding how to get the best performance out of the telescope and to make sure that when we start the full EMU survey in earnest, probably towards the end of this year or maybe early next year, we'll be in the best position to get the highest fidelity data from the telescope.
It is incredible to watch the progress of this. As you're saying, the Scorpio Field survey is morphing into the evolutionary map of the universe. And that research is going to be conducted around the world and will eventually transition onto the SKA. What's the ultimate goal of the EMU survey, Professor?
EMU has many, many goals. It's an incredibly diverse set of researchers. There are over 400 of us around the world, as you mentioned. We have interests that range from cosmology, understanding the nature of the universe itself, through to the evolution of galaxies like our Milky Way over the history of the universe, through to understanding the properties of clusters of galaxies and the large-scale structure that they form, and the rare and unusual radio sources associated with those, all the way through to the very nearby universe and understanding the link between measuring hydrogen gas in galaxies and the rates that galaxies form their stars, and coming all the way back into the Milky Way itself and understanding the properties of our own galaxy in that large context.
It is very exciting research. Looking forward to more understanding and more discoveries being made, especially as the SKA comes online with that massive, even bigger ability to study the night sky. Professor Hopkins, thanks for beaming in and having a Trekzone conversation today.
Thank you very much, Matt. Anytime.
Keep up to date with Twitter. Catch new podcasts daily on YouTube. Plus, we're beaming to your favorite podcast app 5 days a week. Just search for Trekzone and subscribe.